Gather round the flickering candlelight and prepare to cross the veil. Each week on the Boocifer Séance, your ghostly guides, Mrs. and Mr. Booth, summon a chilling new tale from the other side. From haunted mansions and cursed forests to restless spirits with unfinished business, this spectral duo dives deep into spine-tingling ghost stories that will haunt your dreams. Whether it's a forgotten legend or a real-life haunting, no story is too eerie for the booze to conjure. So light a candle, clutch your blanket tight, and dare to join the seance, because once you listen, something might just follow you home. Enter, if you dare.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Boo. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm here.
Is it the 23rd year in the 23rd? No, wait, hold on. Let me get it right. Is it the 23rd spring? And are you ready for 23 days?
Sure.
oh. This one you might want to get your Disney movie picked out. You might want to get a nice cozy blanket, get your hot chocolate ready cuz we got one tonight, boys.
The Disney movie is a necessity.
Always a must. If you don't need a Disney movie after this podcast, please leave it in the comment. We'll amp it up a bit. Oh, well, how was your day?
Oh, typical Friday. People in their usual shenanigans.
Oh, we gotta love those shenanigans. It's not a full moon, so it can't be too bad.
That's true.
All right, so are you ready to hit us with a lovely introduction?
Sure. So, as the title and Miss Boo may suggest, tonight's story is about Jeepers Creepers. Um, so I'm gonna start off with a origin story. I'm going to warn you that I have been informed that my story may not be 100% accurate, but I think I'll get corrected on that here in a minute. So just bear with me if you know this story. So it says there's a stretch of road in Michigan, quiet, flat, and forgettable. The kind of place you only end up if you already know where you're going. But in the spring of 1990, it became the setting for one of the most chilling true stories ever told on national television, and the real life event that many say inspired Jeepers Creepers. It was Easter Sunday, April 15th. Ray and Mary Thornton, a married couple from Coldwater, were driving through rural Lenawe County, heading home from visiting family. The air was clear, the roads were empty, and the only sound was the hum of the tires over the asphalt. Then they noticed a van behind them. Old, beat up, brown or tan, nothing unusual for county roads, except the driver seemed to be staring at them. For miles he followed closely, too closely, until he suddenly swerved into the opposite lane and sped past, disappearing around a bend. The Thorntons thought nothing of it until they rounded that same curve. That's when they saw it. The same van, parked on the shoulder, next to an old abandoned schoolhouse. And standing beside it was the driver, a man in coveralls, dragging a large, blood-stained sheet toward a culvert pipe jutting from the ground. He heaved it inside. When he turned to face the road again, the Thorntons realized he was covered in something dark. Was it mud? Or maybe it was blood? And he was staring right at them. They didn't slow down, but when they checked their mirrors, the van's headlights were suddenly behind them again. He was tailing them, closer this time, almost touching their bumper. For nearly 2 miles, they were locked into a terrifying chase, the van roaring behind them, swerving, speeding up, slowing down as if toying with them. When they finally managed to lose him at an intersection, Marie looked at her husband and said, "We saw something we weren't supposed to see." They drove to the police. The authorities returned to that culvert later that night and found the sheet. Inside it was the body of Marilyn Depew, a local woman who'd been reported missing just hours earlier, shot in the back of the head. Her husband, Dennis Depew, was the man in the van. He'd been a quiet school counselor, polite, soft-spoken, but after years of marital problems, he just snapped. He murdered his wife, dumped her body, and went on the run. Months later, after a nationwide manhunt, he was cornered in Mississippi. As police closed in, Dennis Depew turned the gun on himself. That couldn't be the end of it. Another tragic true crime buried in local news archives. But that same year, his case aired on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, complete with dramatic reenactments of the chase, the schoolhouse, and the van. It burned itself into the minds of millions, including one young horror writer and filmmaker who years later would open his film Jeepers Creepers with a nearly identical scene. A couple driving down a quiet rural road, a mysterious van, a body dumped in a pipe, and a driver who comes after them. The movie turned it into fiction, a supernatural creature instead of a man. But the fear it captured was real, because on that quiet Easter afternoon in 1990, Ray and Marie Thornton didn't see a monster from Folklore. They saw a real man doing something monstrous. And ever since then, people say that lonely stretch of Michigan Road has never quite felt the same. Some even claim they've seen that same van, long after Depew's death, headlights appearing in the rearview mirror, always too close, and always following, and always vanishing when you try to catch it. But the thing about stories like this is that they never really stay buried with the people who lived them. Over time, the details start to blur. The van turns green instead of tan, the driver's face becomes less human, and the man in coveralls grows wings. Soon, he's no longer Dennis Depew. He's something older, something waiting out there on those forgotten roads, hunting by instinct instead of reason. And that's where Jeepers Creepers stops being a movie and starts becoming a modern American legend, a story about the things that follow you long after the real monsters are gone. That was a good one. I like that one. That was a good one.
I got chills. I mean, I'm gonna get your story right, but
I like that.
I got some chills. I need to. Can we put a Disney movie on now, guys? All right. Ooh, gotta shake that off.
All right.
Ready for me?
Yep.
All right. So before we get to the murder of Marilyn Depew, we are going to
Gonna call me out on everything I was wrong about.
we are going to give you a feel for the two individuals. So Dennis and Marilyn Depew, about them, they were a comfortable middle class family. They both worked gratifying careers. Dennis was a Michigan property assessor, while Marilyn was a high school counselor. They had 3 kids. When the kids were born, Marilyn was starting to tell her coworkers that Dennis grew a little sullen and withdrawn. He started isolating himself from the family. He started accusing Marilyn of turning the kids against him. And in 1989, 18 years of marriage later, Marilyn gave up. This is from Marilyn's divorce attorney, J. Richard Colbeck. Colbeck said Marilyn wanted to be her own person and raise the children how she saw fit. Marilyn told Colbeck that Dennis was trying to domineer her, run her life, and not allow her to make decisions for herself. Jack Lit I might say this last name wrong. Littner, he was Dennis's divorce attorney. He said Dennis agreed to the wife having custody of the kids, and as far as property, he was willing to let his wife have most of the property that she wanted. The lawyer fought with Dennis about him at least pushing for his fair share, but Dennis didn't want the divorce. He didn't want this and thought if he just gave her what she wanted, he wouldn't get divorced. Divorce was finalized December 1989. Dennis had bi-weekly visitation with his kids. Marilyn Marilyn rekeyed and changed the locks because there was days she would come home from work and Dennis would be on the couch. What the fuck? Marilyn's coworkers said she started to seem frightened because she didn't know how Dennis just kept getting in. Dennis told coworker Jane Marwowski that he was contemplating suicide and murder. Easter Sunday, April 15th of 1990, Dennis went to pick his kids up, like every visitation, but this time they didn't want to go, causing Dennis to become angry. Marilyn tried to calm Dennis, and Dennis started yelling that she turned the kids against him and started to wrestle with her. In the wrestle, he ended up pushing her down the stairs and continued his assault. The oldest daughter ran to her neighbor's house to call 911. At this time, Dennis carried Marilyn up the stairs and to the van, telling his kids he was taking her to the hospital, but they never arrived. That same Easter Sunday, from the Thorntons' point of view, they were in Coldwater, Michigan. Ray and Marie Thornton took a leisurely drive, as they always do. Ray said they were driving down Snow Perry Road when all of a sudden a van was just on them and riding their bumper and then past them. Ray told his wife, "Look at this guy. He is sure in a hurry." Marie looked at the license plate and saw that it started with GZ and says, "GZ, geez, he must be in a hurry." They love to make words out of the first couple letters in the license plate. That was a game they played on all their leisure drives. Several miles down the road, the Thorntons came across an abandoned schoolhouse. Mary noticed a man with a bloody sheet and yelled to Ray, "The man back there has a bloody sheet." She then saw the van that passed them. It was parked between the schoolhouse and a tanker. Minutes later, the same van pulled up behind them again and rode their bumper for 2 miles. Marie starts writing down what is happening. Ray noticed the man was wearing a white skull cap. Ray started to get nervous, turned off the highway. The van went a little further down the road, then pulled to the side of the road. Ray, being a dumbass, decided to turn around and try to get a plate number to give to the police. Ray noticed the man was at the back of the van changing his license plates. Marie noticed the passenger front door was open and was covered. It was covered in blood. They then decide to return to the school. Yeah, decide to. They then decide to return to the schoolyard to look for the sheet. This right here, guys, is how you die. They found the bloody sheet in a rabbit hole and ran to call the police. When the police arrived, they were able to find blood and tracks, but no body. Marilyn's body was later found a couple days later, midway between the schoolhouse and her house. She had been shot in the back of the head. Dennis days after the murder, sent a total of 17 letters to friends and relatives justifying the murder, postmarked for Virginia, Iowa, and Oklahoma. A year later, at about 18:30 p.m. on the night Unsolved Murder Mysteries broadcasted the Dennis Depew episode, Mary arrived home to her boyfriend Hank in Dallas, Texas. He told Hank told his told her his mother was ill and needed to make an emergency trip home. He had her make him a bunch of sandwiches and pack him some snacks for the trip as he watched his own murder unfold on TV. Like the reenactment unfold on TV. Uh, he he kissed her and hugged her goodbye as if it would be the last time. Later that night, Mary learned that Hank Queen was really Dennis Depew from watching that episode. Mary's neighbor called the police about Hank and that they believed he was the man in that episode. 4 hours later, Depew got into a police standoff across the Louisiana and Mississippi border, ended with him crashing and taking his own life. Dennis once wrote in one of his letters, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a lie for a lie, a life for a life. And that is the story of Dennis Depew and the murder of Marilyn Depew.
All right, go ahead and tell the good folks of the interwebs story. Go ahead and point out all the fault, because I know I personally in the origin came across quite a bit of inconsistency. I mean, I'll go ahead and point out, it specifically talks about the story that I read. It talks about what was uh, over time details blur the green instead of tan. That's funny, because during my research, one of the articles that I shared with Ms. Boo, excuse me, one of the articles calls it a green van. The actual report for Thornton's was brown, or brownish, say tan van of it. So it's like there's definitely inconsistency. I know you found it.
So a lot of it is like, so I watched the full unedited version of the Unsolved Murder Mystery, and I watched the interview with the lawyer, um, but with both lawyers, the best friend, their daughters, and the Thorntons on Unsolved Murder Mysteries. I watched that episode, and it that is where I've gotten all my information. Um, so I mean, I believe them because it's literally them in front of a camera telling it. And mind you, Mary, they call her Mary because they don't actually know her name. She refused to give her name and wanted to be unknown. So that whole episode, she's in like a silhouette. I mean, if I was, I guess, dating someone who just murdered someone, I wouldn't really, and they were just on murder mystery, I probably wouldn't want you to see my face either. So, um, it's just a small stuff that just probably got jumbled up, like you said, as people kept telling the story.
Yeah. There's some back and forth about whether it was an animal hole. I'm gonna say this. I think most of the stuff you found claimed it to be an animal hole. The stories I read claimed it to be a storm culvert that goes under, what I understood it to be, like a culvert that goes under your driveway. Now, I'm gonna tell you what, I don't know what damn animal that these people thought made that damn hole, but to hide a grown ass woman in it is a big ass animal hole. And I don't know what kind of animal that was, but saying I believe the culvert part before I believe that. But either way, I think the official was it was a hole. Um,
That's just
But yeah,
what Marie thought I believed it to be. That's what Marie Thornton said it was.
so that's kind of the origin. You know, I did a little research. This is obviously a big inspiration for Jeepers Creepers. Inspiration is not even the right word. The opening scene to the original movie is this exactly. There are a lot of what they call classic roadside horror instances, and I think this might have been one that manifested itself due to its popularity, TV and stuff like that. There's a lot of these stories out there, and everybody's heard of some sort of side of the highway saw a scary man, been followed too closely, road type. Um, Usually it's truckers, hitchhikers, phantom drivers. You even got Hank Williams, Phantom 309. There's just endless accounts of this type of horror, and I think that's why it was so popular for the origin of the movie. And yeah, so next we need to talk about the evolution of what originally was Dennis in Creature. So I have a little bit on that. I'm gonna tell you what I found and you can elaborate. Um, the overall folklore architecture archetype of it is that it combines aspect of demonic harvesting, moth, say this, the Wendigo,
Wendigo.
Wendigo. I don't know why my accent pairs that one. The Wendigo. Um, they say that there's a lot of similarities to creatures that appear like every 23rd of spring for 23 days. So it creates it in like a cyclical evil, similar to hibernating legends like cicadas for supernatural. A lot of intertwining with that, which also goes to the time of year that it happens. So there might grab from that. Um, Consumes body parts to regenerate, which is a concept rooted in cannibalistic folklore and shape shifting survival. Some folklore is compared to the biblical um, slaughter this Nephilim, or the fallen angels, being that it preys on humans for essence of or flesh, and symbolically represents fear of mortality and decay. He reclaims what we fear losing, which is ourselves. I know you've got more on.
For the creeper, all I really had was the creeper is a demonic flesh-eating creature that awakens every 23rd spring to feed for 23 days. The creeper itself isn't folklore, but borrows several mythical archetypes. You mentioned a couple, but the ones I saw was Wendigo, which is the cannibalistic spirit.
The Wendigo.
Which is a cannibalistic spirit. We won't get too much into that because that will be talked about probably later. The boogeyman.
You just explain what the Wendigo is.
Let me see if I can get a better definition because I put that he was a cannibalistic spirit. So let me see.
You don't have. I was. Not everybody knows what the Wendigo is.
The Wendigo is a mythological creature from the oh my god. All right, big words. Algonquian folklore, often depicted as a cannibalistic monster. It is associated with winter and is described as either a fearsome beast that stalks and eats humans or as a spirit that possesses individuals, causing them to turn into cannibals.
Yes. Continue.
The next one I got for that was the boogeyman. He was a shape shifting predator that a lot. If you grew up, no, just yeah. If you were a child at one point, your parents told you about the boogeyman. It was used to scare kids, and is still used to this day to scare kids. And the other part of him is biblical demons and the harvest myths. That's all I really had about the um the creeper part of it.
Um, real quick, I've got a little section here on. Okay. Okay. So regional and mythic influences. So, Midwestern and Southern roads are, like Boo said, are filled with boogeymen tales. Each small town has its own version of this. Um, Examples would be like the Goatman Bridge of Texas, the Flatwoods Monster in Virginia, and as we previously covered, the Rougarou in Louisiana. All very similar type mythic monsters, if you will, that kind of explain how, or maybe how, the creature got it. You know, like she was saying, the creature in this story is not folklore for the reason that it's a combination of folklore. So it's not a tale of folklore because the creature itself is fiction, but its origin is folklore. So it comes from different stories, and there, like the story about the wings, the cannibalistic property. It's pulling stories from other origins that are folklore and this fiction being. It's you've got like the vanishing hitchhiker, the devil in the crossroads, the road reaper all merge into one hyper myth. The idea of a creature that hunts by scenting fear is a typical echo of old tales of demons that smell sin. Everyone knows I like always find religious demonic piece to stuff if it exists, and I think that's one of the small references in this is you can kind of relate it to that demonic smell of sin, which eventually evolved folklore to what we would call. My parents, always joked growing up that monsters smell fear. When you're scared of something, they can smell it. Dogs can smell fear. Stuff like that. Um, that actually originated from more of a demonic, most likely due to the error when the story started was more of a religious error and Catholic Church and that. And we're going to touch on it later this and maybe dive a little bit deeper into that. But a lot of that, you have to remember that a lot of this is going to come from the time. So not all of this is, oriented around the 1990s. The origin story of how it was set up is, but the monster itself was taken from all of these things into the time of old, if you will. The church was big, and the church had a big influence on believers and non-believers. One of those things was demonic possessions like that, and forth. Now, monster fear. Um, Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but I like that stuff. So, um, another point of speculation as well could be, um, a question that might be asked is, could the creeper be tied to an older European Native American legend brought over and mixed? So not only are we assuming that it was American folklore stories, American that evolved him, you have, what's the name of the Spanish like boogeyman? Um, Almost like the Rougarou, the Chupacabra. So if you incorporate the Chupacabra in this, it's very similar to almost like a Rougarou type creature, and in terms is almost kind of similar to like the creeper type creature. So, we might not always. It might not have only been influenced by American United States. It could have been influenced by other cultures from outside the United States. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on the regional kind of aspect.
Um, no, just because for that part of it, I didn't really look deep into it because when I tell you the cold case, or not, well, it's not cold case, the true crime part of it had me hooked, and I felt like that was just,
Figured it would.
I figured, like, that was just,
True crime eats you up.
yeah, and it was more, it was more scary, and just to see what sinister human human like incident started a franchise, and it started the Jeepers Creepers and created this scary being. It's showing you, like, that story kind of shows you that real monsters, or well, fake monsters, as you put it, well, as I put it, fake monsters start off as human. So
Right. And that's a good segue into our next segment, if you will, which is on cultural impact and symbolic. I think that word tears me up.
symbolism,
Symbolism, not
Symbo-
symbolism.
symbolism.
Symbolism. Uh, there's another ism that's kicking in there on me. So I know Miss Boo's got something specific here. I'm just gonna do a quick little dive into this and can run with it. I think she's gonna kind of weigh in more on the actual Jeepers Creepers franchise side of it now, but the Jeepers Creepers really hit hard in the industry early 2000s, um, being because it was a perfect storm of urban legend meets cinematic monster myth. And I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes. The creeper's non-human intelligence is what separates him from a typical slasher villain. So you have a lot of movies out right now that, um, not now, but talking you're in the early. You have a lot of movies that are oriented around um, a slasher villain, meaning, like you said, meaning like a human figure, or find out 5 movies later that they're not human either. Anyway, they weren't monster. There wasn't a lot of monster movies that involved real life situations. This movie did a good job of incorporating. You have the symbolism of the rural American landscape, endless cornfields, forgotten roads, religious overtones. You're catering to a group of people who, in my opinion, I fall into this category. So I'm going to say it about my own category of people, that rural Americans are susceptible to these stories, and we are the ones guilty of taking that story, that true story, regardless of how popular it is, and running. And here we are now. We've got damn creepers at them, and they did a very good job of that. Um, there is an idea that the creeper isn't a monster, but it's more of a fictional reminder of how far from civilization. How far from civilization we really are on the back road. And it plays into that tone of, when you come to a rural town, rural America, are you really, is this something that occurs because you were that far away? Is this something that's normal here but not normal in the city? We watched a video on stream one night of a guy in a local town here about Bigfoot, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if you look up Kings Mountain, South Carolina, Bigfoot on the news, we're in rural America, and this dude was, I mean, anyway. But there's this image that the farther you get from civilization, the realer the monster becomes, because it's more likely that monster, if it were, understanding that the farther you get away from the city, the more possible this story be. There's always this facade of, he's not chasing you because you're special, he's chasing you in, which adds a bit of area to the topic. And this is in a lot of researchers' opinions, this is a typical primal American isolation, pursuit, and being chosen by something you don't know. So you're in the middle of nowhere, you're being chased by something, which I would say a majority of the American movie viewer has a fear, some level of being pursued against their will, and then being chosen by something you don't know. Me, you don't understand what's causing that attraction. So there's no way to it taps kind of into the undertones of murder from the original story, but now that murder is pointed towards you, you can't explain. All right, I'm done, Miss Boo. Your turn.
All right. So the only thing I really have is um let me take you back to it's the 2000s. You're on your MySpace. You just moved one friend from your third best friends to the first slot, and you turn on Jeepers Creepers. You ever watch that very first scene in Jeepers Creepers? Well, Victor Salva wrote Jeepers Creepers and borrowed key details from the Depew murder for that scene. In that scene, there's a couple. Um, well, he took the couple, but in the movie, they're siblings, but in real life, they're married. They're married. Um, Another key point is they witness a man carrying a bloody sheet, and the last is the sinister van chasing them down. But with movies, you need to dramatize it. That's where Selva, I don't know why I keep calling him Sylvia. Selva added a supernatural twist, creating the creature, as Mr. Boo just went over. That's a demonic flesh eating creature, awakens every 23rd spring, and feeds for 23 days. And that just, I don't know, this whole thing just reminds you that next time you're driving down a dark road and you see a van pull behind you, maybe like look at it more than once. Because sometimes monsters start out as humans. Just saying. Just saying.
And there's we're almost done here. There's one more kind of section I want to go over. People claim that Jeepers Creepers style encounters have occurred across and winged shapes near highways. The Point Pleasant, West Virginia Mothman sightings, 1966 to 1967, are very similar to this. A winged humanoid seen before disaster. The Lovelock Cave legends of Nevada, red-haired cannibal giants reemerge cyclically. Um, Online creeper stories, truckers, night drivers, hunters describing humanoid shadows with wings and talons, and they they help blur the line between fiction, movie myth, and ancient that might have existed long before the cameras rolled. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself questions. Like, did Jeepers Creepers really invent a monster, or did they just awaken one that maybe we had been forgetting about? Um, the film eventually fades. Eventually people are going to quit watching it, turns old. But like we mentioned at the beginning, the folklore will always stay. We read these stories on this podcast, and I'm always amazed, and it always makes Miss Boo roll her eyes when I tell her that a story, regardless of its truth, regardless if it's fiction, nonfiction, that story has carried itself sometimes hundreds of years. It might have changed, it might have evolved, but it stayed. And that's because things like in this story, the road remains, the darkness is still quiet, and there will always be a 23rd of spring. So when that comes back around, it reminds them what once was, what was once told, and it alludes to that. You know, once something is written in history, you can't forget it. You can try, but usually folklore and legends can. So I understand you have some questions for me this.
I do. I do. This time I'm hitting you with the questions. Let me know when you're ready for them.
I'm ready.
All right. So, first off, have you seen the movies?
That's a loaded question. That's a hard first question. No.
Oh, no, we're watching. Um, well, and I guess this one's
I
even.
am familiar.
I guess
I'm
this
not
one.
I'm not speaking on ignorance. I am familiar, but I have not seen the full movie.
I guess this one makes it a little harder then. Do you think true crime is scarier than the horror movies?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you why. Regardless of seeing the movie, we had this conversation earlier, and you didn't tell me a question. Now I understand. I think why we talked about it. True crime scares the shit out of me, and it's like I'm going to pick on a TV show for a second. One of my favorite law enforcement crime related shows is Criminal. Scares the living hell out of me though, more than any horror movie, more than any Freddy versus Jason, more than any demonic. Some lady's getting drugged by her hair across the room, because what is said on that show, even Criminal Minds, but especially in a show like True Crime and Unsolved Murders, what they talk about is real. Those things actually occurred. So the movie can be expanded, the movie can be fictionalized, make it more appealing, make it more money in the box office, but unsolved murder, true crime stories make their money off truth. And granted, yeah, they add a little flair, they add a little background music, they add a little, this road was dark and eerie and spooky and smoky and all this stuff. But that couple drove down that road. That couple saw that man with a bloody sheet. That couple almost witnessed the murder of a woman and almost died themselves. All that's true. And that to me is scarier than anything that's made up or fictional. The truth will always be scarier because it's backed by fact. It actually happened. So
What part of this case gives you the biggest chills?
there's 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 a part of this that I don't understand. Um, I'm very, once I take a task on, I haven't always this, but once I take on researching one, I want to know all of it. I want to know the truth. I know every detail. And a lot of these stories, you'll never get that. You're going to get what the couple said, but they were stricken by fear. Um, what I don't understand, why he did it then. So if I'm a murderer, which, but if I was, and I was going to ditch a body, I wouldn't drive around a car, go up the road less than a half a mile, that I know the car that I just passed and our angry huff is behind me, get out, throw the dead person away close enough to the road that I can be seen, get back in the car, then follow the person. I just, that part right there is the part that what was his plan? Was he so deranged that he didn't care? Was he intending on more victims? Did they spoil a plot? But to me, why did he have to? It almost feels like he had to do what he did, regardless of who was there, regardless of who saw. He had to do that right then. And I get that vibe very, very strong, because to me, immediately I thought that I had researched something incorrectly. I'm like, there's no way this dude tailgated them, drove up around a corner, got out, dumped the body, and watched them as they drove by, and then tailgated them again, and then let them go. I mean, I get they lost him at an intersection, or he turned off, or whatever happened, all the different stories, but I've not heard he wrecked his car and he flipped it and couldn't chase them. I haven't heard any of that. Then they came back. In your research, they came back So ran into him a third time, and he still didn't do anything to him. I don't understand that, and that to me creates a little bit of freakiness.
All right. And this is my last question I have for you. Would you have stopped or would you have kept driving?
I would have absolutely not fucking, and I absolutely would have not fucking turned around. I would have done what my story said, which I was told was wrong, chat. But I would have hauled my ass to the fucking police station as fast as I fucking have, because exactly what I just said in the last answer. I would be afraid that that dude's coming to kill me next because I just witnessed something I should not. And who in the right mind goes, you know what? We need to turn around, go make sure we saw what we saw. No. And you know me. You know how when we're driving, we could just be driving in a road I drive every day, and somebody gets too close to my bumper, and I'm already ears up like a dog. And I can only imagine that dude passing me and me going, "Oh, geez, he's in a hurry," and then I come around the corner and there he is hauling a dead body off in the woods. Like, oh, I'd have been, we going to the police station, and we ain't turning around, and we're not passing go, and we're not collecting $200 without the sheriff.
Oh man, yep.
So
Well,
yeah, that is Jeepers Creepers, folks. Hope it was as interesting for y'all as it was us. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, I hope my scary story kind of gave you a free little bit of haunt and fright Friday night. But I would like to say, as a closing statement, did we are uh, if you have not been on the Patreon, please go visit our Patreon. There is a free version of it. I'm gonna be honest with you, there's not much on there free. Everything we talk about here in the live episode is in there. All of our research notes get put in there. Everything that we can find, everything that we compile is in there. The full VOD is in there for anybody that doesn't see it live. So um, please go visit our Patreon. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Some things we didn't really dive deep into was like the Depu's letters that he wrote, which there's a lot going on there. Um, there's a lot of stuff that, short of filing a Freedom of Information Act, I couldn't get my hand. I was kind of intrigued that there's no reports, no speculation of what the letters contained or that, but we did a lot of research. But please go check out our Patreon. It's $5 a month, and you get all of the content that we put up there. We started this back with G. Pierce Hospital. And it's funny that we're doing this Jeepers Creepers episode because when my friend told me about Pierce Memorial Hospital, I always thought he was saying Jeepers Memorial Hospital. And I'm like, there's a hospital tied in with Jeepers Creepers? Like, I didn't know that. Like, now I'm really intrigued. And then he explained it to me. He's like, no, it's G. Pierce Memorial Hospital. So, but all of season two's content's on there. Uh, please go check it out. We've also got the Spotify and the YouTube. Appreciate everyone who has shared, followed, commented, any engagement that you guys can give us on YouTube or Spotify. Specifically YouTube is awesome. We've gotten a pretty good following over there, so please continue to spread the word. Again, we do still have the floor open for any sort of viewer submission. I think season 2 is full right now, but it always feels good to be able to have content ready for season 3, and especially when it's content that we know you guys hear search out. Um, no matter what it is, if it's scary, if it's mythical, if it's anything behind the veil, we're willing to listen to, we're willing to research, and we're willing to sit here and talk to you about it. So please go check us out on all of our socials. Uh, but again, guys, um, for supporting us. Please come check out in the off time from the podcast. Please come check out Boo and her channel here. There's a lot of great content, a lot of great people here. So, yeah. But for now, we're gonna leave it where it's at. And
Hold on. Pause right there.
Oh, now it's my turn to go that for end early.
I want to leave it with the chilling. I haven't been able to let it out of my mind of the last thing Dennis wrote in his letters: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a lie for a lie, and a life for a life. It started with him taking a life. It ended with his life being taken. And I just wanted to end it with that. All right, go turn on your.
See you guys
Yep.
next week.
Stay spooky. Enjoy your Disney movie.
Stay spooky. Hope you hear my voice in your dreams or your nightmares.
Yeah,
Either
it doesn't
one.
matter. We're going to be there.
Bye.
Bye.